Today we're going to learn about one of my favorite topics, which is macromolecules. I love this unit because it gives you a better understanding of how the food you eat functions and does things for your body. There are 4 types of macromolecules: carbohydrates, proteins, lipids, and nucleic acids. Carbohydrates mainly function in energy, so specifically short-term energy. Carbohydrates are usually burned up by your body really quickly. They'll hit your bloodstream fast, and they're your body's primary source of energy before it will start tapping into things like fat. Carbohydrates can also help build structures in an organism. So for example, the cell walls of plants are made of cellulose, which is a big carbohydrate. And that helps the plants stay rigid and be upright, and also prevent them from absorbing too much water and bursting or something else bad happening to them. The monomer of a carbohydrate is a monosaccharide. Mono means one, and saccharide means sugar. So monosaccharide is one sugar, also known as a simple sugar. So this is our monomer of a carbohydrate. Examples of monosaccharides are glucose, which is the most basic sugar. That's what plants produce through photosynthesis. The chemical formula for glucose is C6H12O6, and you will need to memorize that formula. Fructose is one of the sweetest sugars. This is what we find in sodas and a lot of candy in the form of high fructose corn syrup, which is basically just concentrated fructose. And galactose, which is found in milk. As your body starts to break down lactose, which is a sugar that's found in milk, it will split it into glucose and galactose, 2 simple sugars. When it comes to identifying a monosaccharide, you're going to look for this ring or hexagon structure. This picture here is glucose, but whenever you see this general shape, you should think of monosaccharides. Polysaccharides are the polymer of carbohydrates. So when you have many monosaccharides bonded together, we get a polysaccharide. It's also known as complex carbohydrates. So monosaccharides and other simple sugars are things that typically make your blood sugar spike really quickly. They are simple, they're easy for your body to break down. Whereas polysaccharides, like starch that we find in potatoes and breads, are going to take longer for your body to digest. Polysaccharide looks very similar to a monosaccharide, but it's going to have more subunits bonded together. Foods that we find carbohydrates in, like I said, would be breads, pastries, pasta, fruits and vegetables. Those are all really good sources of carbohydrates, as well as more processed versions like soda, candy, cookies, things like that. So just a quick review. A monomer is a building block of more complex molecules. So like I mentioned in the last set of notes, a monomer is like a single Lego, and then when we combine those Legos to build something, when they are stuck or bonded together, that becomes a polymer. So we have repeating units that are joined usually by covalent bonds. Our next macromolecule is protein. Protein has a lot of functions. It's probably one of the most useful macromolecules in your body because it has so many different things that it does. So here are a couple main functions of protein. We have it transports molecules both in and out of the cell and inside of the cell. Enzymes, which are going to carry out reactions. Structural support, they make up actual parts of the cell, like the cytoskeleton, which gives the cell, animal cells at least, their structure. They're also going to make up part of the cell membrane. And cell communication and identification. So proteins on the outside of a cell are how your body recognizes what is part of our organism and what is not. So because bacteria and virus will have different proteins on their surface. That's how our immune system knows to attack those, but not our own body cells. Here's a handy little acronym if you like to use these to remember the functions of protein. The acronym is MASTER. M stands for movement. A for antibodies, which is the immune system, it's your body fighting off infection. Structure, because they make up parts of the body, or the cell, same thing. Transport, like I mentioned, they move things throughout the cell, into and out of the cell. Enzymes, and regulation. The building blocks of protein are amino acids. So our monomer of protein is an amino acid. Here are a couple of examples. Alanine, lysine, tryptophan. All amino acids have a basic structure, which you see on the bottom of the picture here. And then each amino acid is going to have a different side chain, which is that ring in this specific example. And that is going to vary and alter how a protein will fold and interact and carry out its job. You can see here an amino acid, again, is a monomer. It's one unit. And when we combine them, when they're bonded through a peptide bond, they become a fully functioning protein. Protein sources would be any sort of meat, eggs, nuts are a really good source of protein, tofu, soy, things like that. Okay, then we have lipids. Lipids get a very bad rap because they're also known as fats. Fats function in long-term energy storage. So carbohydrates will provide very quick energy. With fats or lipids, they're going to get stored away for later. So when your body really needs it, like bears will try and gain weight, gain fat so that they can stay warm as they hibernate in the winter. They're not eating very much. Lipids also are a key component of cell membranes. So without consuming lipids, our cells would not be able to create and repair our cell membranes. Hormones are based on lipids, so things, especially sex hormones like estrogen, testosterone, those are based on cholesterol, which is a type of lipid. And waterproofing, because lipids or fats and water don't mix, they're good for protecting the cells and our skin from extra water entering. So here we have our main structure. Our monomers of a lipid, there are actually two, are glycerol and 3 fatty acids. So that's our base unit. So 3 fatty acids are connected to one glycerol molecule. And glycerol is C3H8O3. Fatty acids determines the type of lipid. They're mostly made of carbon and hydrogen, and that's one of the main reasons that lipids do not mix with water, because they are nonpolar, and so they're not able to have any of those polar interactions with water. The main thing to take away from this picture is that a lot of lipids are in an E shape. So you can see the glycerol is the backbone of the E, and then the 3 little legs would be the fatty acids. There are many categories of lipids. We have waxes like paraffin or tallow, and the tallow comes from animals. These are things like you find in your candles. Unsaturated fats or oils are things that are liquid at room temperature. So corn oil, olive oil, basically any type of oil except for coconut because it does get solid. Saturated fats are things that are solid at room temperature, like butter, animal fat, like saturated fat that you find in meat. Steroids, as I mentioned, estrogen, testosterone are derived from cholesterol. That's another group of lipids. And extra food sources, pizza, cheese is a big source of saturated fat. Bacon has a lot of fat. Butter, avocado, oils, Fried food has a lot of fat because it absorbs a lot of the oil that it's cooked in. And as I mentioned already, meat has a lot of saturated fat. Alright, and our final category is nucleic acids. The function of nucleic acids is to control the cell. So everything that the cell does comes from nucleic acid. Our building block of nucleic acid, or our monomer, is called a nucleotide. And a nucleotide has 3 parts: a phosphate, a sugar, and a nitrogen base. And when we get to DNA, we'll cover more in depth what those things are and how they vary between DNA and RNA. But for now, you just need to know those 3 parts. Okay, there are only 2 types of nucleic acid that we will cover. One is DNA and the other is RNA.